You have probably heard this one before, the chainsaw, invented for childbirth. One doctor, one dark idea, one fact so shocking it has been repeated on the internet approximately 400 million times. You've seen it in a listicle. You've seen it dropped into a comment section, confidently, like the person typing it fact-checked anything at all. It is a great fact. It is also wrong. Not slightly simplified wrong, wrong in about 4 separate directions at once, which honestly takes some effort. Wrong on the doctor, wrong on the for childbirth part, wrong on the crank, and extremely wrong on the idea that it is the same tool cutting down trees right now. So let's do what this channel exists to do. Take the viral version apart, piece by piece, with sources. Petty, pedantic, and slower than you want it to be. Start with the world that supposedly needed this thing. By the 1780s, doctors already had a way to handle a baby stuck in a pelvis too narrow to let it through. It was called symphysiotomy, cutting the cartilage joint at the front of the pelvis by hand to widen it. This wasn't used for every birth. It was the fallback for obstructed labor specifically, the cases where the baby was stuck and nobody had a better option left. That operation is a lot older than the device that gets blamed for it. A French physician named Séverin Pinot proposed it back in 1597, after examining a body where that same joint had separated naturally. The first recorded successful version of the operation happened in Paris in 1777. No chainsaw involved, no hand-cranked anything, just a scalpel and roughly 200 years head start on the tool everyone credits with starting it. So why not just do a cesarean instead? Because in the 1700s, opening the abdomen was, statistically, the worst bet. One commonly cited historical record puts cesarean maternal mortality at around 43%. No antiseptic technique existed yet. Germ theory hadn't been established. Infection killed more patients than the surgery itself did. So surgeons of the era looked at their 2 brutal options and, with complete sincerity, decided cutting the pelvic joint apart was the safer choice for the mother. And they did it awake, fully conscious. Anesthesia would not exist for another 60 years. That is simply what treating this condition meant at that point in history. Not a punchline, just the fact. Now, the actual device. In 1785, an Edinburgh surgeon named John Aitken published a textbook. It was called, and this is real, Principles of Midwifery, or Puerperal Medicine. In it, he illustrated a small hand tool meant to make symphysiotomy easier. A fine, serrated chain stretched between 2 wooden handles. That's it. That's the whole chainsaw. Surgeons worked it back and forth like a cheese wire, like the wire saw that would later replace it entirely. No crank, no motor. Nothing that revs, nothing that roars, nothing that sounds like the thing currently idling in someone's garden shed. Meanwhile, over in Glasgow, a professor of anatomy and botany named James Jeffray was having what he insisted was his own idea entirely independently around the same time. Anatomy and botany. Apparently, that was one job you could just have in 1790. He's also the one who compared the chain itself to a watch chain. Fine, delicate, nothing industrial about it whatsoever. His own version of the saw didn't actually get built until that year, which is exactly the kind of detail that comes up in disputes like this. 2 Scottish doctors, same decade, same basic device, neither one working with the other. History has spent 200 years quietly arguing about which of them gets to be the inventor. Nobody won. Everybody's a little annoyed about it. In 2004, a team of medical historians published an actual academic paper on this. Its title is The Chainsaw, a Scottish Invention. Make of that title whatever you want. It's not subtle. It's basically the 18th century version of 2 people filing the same patent on the same day and quietly resenting each other about it for the next 2 centuries. And here's the detail the viral version always leaves out. They built it for 2 different reasons. Aitken's interest was obstetric, symphysiotomy specifically. Jeffray's interest was bone disease, cutting out diseased joints that had nothing to do with childbirth at all. So, invented for childbirth is true of exactly one of the 2 men who get credited with inventing it. Fast forward to 1830. A German surgeon named Bernhard Heine took the concept and actually gave it the parts people picture. A hand crank, a continuous chain loop running around a guide like an actual chainsaw. Heine called it an osteotome, also built for bone surgery in general. Still not childbirth specific, still nowhere near motorized. A 2024 engineering team that digitally reconstructed Heine's device concluded it resembles a contemporary chainsaw more than a contemporary bone saw. One study, one team's read. But it's the closest anything in medicine ever got to the modern shape. By 1894, this whole surgical lineage was already obsolete, replaced in operating rooms by the Gigli wire saw. A simple twisted wire did the job better. And here's the detail worth sitting with. Edinburgh gave the world this device in 1785. 62 years later, an Edinburgh obstetrician named James Young Simpson pioneered the use of chloroform in childbirth in 1847. Same city, same specialty. The thing that would have made this survivable arrived generations too late to help anyone who needed it in 1785. Now, the modern chainsaw, the one in the shed. Completely separate invention. Different country, different century, different industry, different people. Frederick Magaw patented an early timber chainsawing machine in 1883. Samuel Benz and James Shand each built on the idea for the timber trade in the decades after. Andreas Steele patented an electric felling saw in 1926. Emil Lerp built the first transportable petrol version a couple of years later. Steele came back with a one-person petrol saw by 1930, and that's the company that's still making these things. None of these men cite the surgical device. None of the patents mention it. There is no documented line connecting a Georgian surgeon's hand tool to a 1920s petrol engine. No established causal link at all. Full stop. They just both landed on a chain of teeth is a good way to cut things, independently, about a century apart. So here's what actually happened to this story. A slow, messy, multi-decade history. 2 independent doctors, 2 different medical reasons, a 60-year gap before anesthesia existed, and an entirely unrelated timber industry a century later. All of it got sanded down into one clean sentence. One doctor, one reason, one tool doing the same job in a delivery room and a forest. That sentence is easier to repeat. It is also not what happened. This is basically what happens to every "you won't believe this was invented for that" fact that gets passed around. Somebody quietly removes the second inventor. Somebody drops the 60-year gap. Somebody merges 2 unrelated industries because it makes a better headline. So next time a fact sounds too clean to be true, it probably is. Somewhere in there, someone sanded off an inventor, a century, or an entire unrelated field just to make it fit in one sentence. The chainsaw wasn't invented for childbirth. It was invented, twice, by 2 irritated Scottish men for 2 different reasons, and then reinvented by a completely different set of people 100 years later for trees. This channel exists to find the exact spot where someone flattened a good, messy, multi-decade story into a bad, clean, one-line one, and hand you the good one back. Which is, honestly, a better story. It's just pettier.